I want you to see what citizen journalism really looks like in real time. When we get distracted by all these other stories, this is what's happening to kids. We read them in the files. No one's prosecuted. Nobody. That's why stories like this will persist, and we'll keep hearing about it.
You said that you were on vacation, and now you're moving this small child to the airport. I thought you were on vacation. Do you have any comment about children that have gone missing that you've helped to escort across the country? We have footage here that a lot of these children don't know the sponsors that they are going to. What's going on? There's kids in the car here. They're moving these kids. They just turn the lights off. Excuse me. What's going on here? There they go. And notice they got out of here in such a hurry that they just left their bags here.
You know, these stories about children being trafficked is more common than you can possibly understand, especially in desperate parts of the world, but also parts here in the United States. And I'm not saying everybody's doing spirit cooking, but what I am saying is that there is an inherent danger to ignoring this crisis that is actually going on. Now, apparently this woman who was confronted by this citizen journalist is an Israeli. That was pointed out at the beginning of the clip. Can't look at the camera, can't acknowledge. Just keep going. Keep going and don't ask questions. Gets worse.
Think about that. They got out of here. We don't even know what's in those bags. The van that we just confirmed that they are now taking off. We are following them. We believe that they're taking these kids to the airport. Excuse me, why are you all wearing masks? Do you have any comment on that? Why are you hiding your identity? Do you have any shame, sir? There's still time to redeem yourself. Would you like to see the footage that we caught of the what's going on? Were their IDs even checked just there? Were their IDs even just checked? Who checked their IDs? I didn't see any ID check just there. There was no ID check. Right. Why weren't their IDs checked? If I was going to go here. I'm not going to say anything.
Are a lot of the kids coming over here, are they trafficked or like what's the...
Some are. I'm not gonna lie. Some are.
Does that happen?
So first he thinks, I'm not going to say anything on camera. Turn the cameras off. Turn your secret camera in your jacket pocket on. Are these kids being trafficked? Some are. So he knows what's going on. This Border Patrol agent at McAllen International Airport is saying, yeah, these kids are being trafficked. What's he going to do about it? You think he probably hasn't complained? Maybe he has. But again, who's listening? Nobody's listening. McAllen Miller International Airport is in the Rio Grande Valley of South Texas. So clearly, this is a hot button area, and this is where a lot of problems go on. And no one is going to talk about it. No one is going to address this reality because for so many people, take this border agent, for example, this is his career, his livelihood, and he knows that he can't say anything. Because if he does, he's out of a job. And who the hell else knows what else that's going to be. Let me tell you guys something. One of the reasons I do what I do for a living is that I don't have to technically be on the grid. I do not answer to anybody. I do not make a salary. I make a living based off of my own capability, my own stick-to-itiveness, my ability to build relationships outside of the corporate infrastructure. Not everybody can do that. I know that I'm very fortunate to be able to say what I need to say because anybody who works within it is very likely subject to being taken down several pegs if need be. Look at our friend Guy Christensen. His entire channel's been shut down. He's a young guy. This is a way for him to make a living. They took it away from him. We're going to have him on Monday night, and we're going to talk about it. But that's how real this is. As the guy said, I'm not saying anything on camera. Now, of course, it's a little sneaky to put him on the hidden camera, but he's saying, yeah, these kids are trafficked. And when he say, and the thing you also have to remember, ladies and gentlemen, when they say some kids are trafficked, what he really means to say is, yeah, a lot of them are trafficked. That's what's happening. Don't forget, there's a lot of different reasons why kids get trafficked, and it's not just for sex. They get trafficked to do child labor, work in the fields. They're, get abused in many different ways. And I'm sure it kills this guy. At least that's what it sounds like. Okay, that's good to know. But the idea that they're pulling channels because people are speaking truth to power is a really scary prospect that we must continue to speak out against.
And a lot that the kids come over here with a totally fake name. Yeah.
There's no way for us to verify.
And so they come over here with a fake name, and then they just come up with one. They just get a brand new identity. They could be anybody.
Have you seen that movie?
Sound of Freedom?
Yeah, Sound of Freedom.
Yeah, I've seen that. Yeah.
Exactly like that. Shit happens.
You guys get the...
Okay, now I haven't seen the movie Sound of Freedom. I know that it has a conservative bend to it, but that doesn't really bother me. I would see it. I know that a lot of people were kind of on the fence, mixed feelings about the movie, but at the end of the day, there's no question that there's definitely a lot of truth in those types of projects because it's drawn from real life. Somebody experiences this and want their story out there, and rightfully so. So here we go. There's definitely, and thank you, Hazel. I appreciate it. That would be a good reason as any to see it. Hazel's one of our straight shooters on this channel.
Kids coming over here with the notes that are attached to them with the addresses, right? And a lot of times those addresses lead to like a sex trafficker or something, right? That's legit.
Yeah, there's a lot of shit that we can't tell.
What's the issue, though? Why can't you guys talk on camera?
It's the policies that we have, things that we can and can't say.
But why don't they want you talking on camera?
Honestly, though, I really wish there was more people like you.
One of the things that is universally true in a lot of corners of politics and just life in general, the guy who made the Sound of Freedom movie is a predator himself, and assuming that that is the case. There's also a lot of people who tell on themselves. There's a lot of people who commit crimes, who do a lot of evil things, and their way of trying to cleanse their soul of the crimes that they've committed is by trying to do things to help those that have gone through a similar situation. They can't live down their guilt. They can't admit their guilt. So again, they try to wash their hands of it. Well, I know I'm terrible, but let me try to score some karma points by exposing others that do the same thing. Hence why you can make a movie and have it be so spot on, as many people said Sound of Freedom was. So that doesn't surprise me in the least. If you haven't smashed that like button yet, please make sure that you do. Let's try to get this out there as far and wide as we can.
Landed in Houston, and it appears as if MVM has requested a police escort because they don't want media exposing what they're doing. But if you look, they have all of the kids wearing masks and they have them keeping their head down. They're telling them to hide their face. Do you have any comment about children that have gone missing that you've helped to escort across the country?
No, and they're not going to, because in the end, whether or not all of these stories are 100% legitimate, or whether or not there are children that are being dragged into these situations, there are many other layers that go into this. There's a reason that it doesn't get talked about. These children are put in harm's way, not because they have any other choice. They're put in harm's way because it's good for business. The thing I think a lot of times people have a hard time understanding is that a lot of things when it comes to economics are all interconnected. When it comes to things like border policy, immigration, so many times what people fail to realize is that if the country truly wanted to shut its borders, it could. But why allow the floodgates to open? Why create an ICE brigade? Because this is all, it's all one big jobs program. It's all about money. It's all about power. These children, these vulnerable people from third world countries, this is just the cost of doing business. Remember, people sit in boardrooms like United Health and decide how many people have to die in order to get our shareholders to make their profit margins on the quarterly. That's real. And so is this. So nothing's really changed. And that's why it brings me to Howard Lutnick. Now, for those who know that Howard Lutnick is the Secretary of Commerce, an extremely powerful individual, this person essentially decides economic policy in many respects. Dirty little secrets regarding Mr. Lutnick. He lived on Palm Beach Island. I don't know if he still does. But you know who his neighbor was? His neighbor was Jeffrey Epstein. And as has been brought to many of our attention, he brought his family to the island. This is commentary that he made, I want to say about a year ago.
And there's a massage table in the middle of the room.
Ooh.
And candles all around and stuff. So I ask very insightful, cutting questions. I say to him, massage table in the middle of your house? How often do you have a massage? And he says, every day. And then he gets weirdly close to me.
Ooh.
And he says, and the right kind of massage.
Ooh.
Now my wife is standing here. So she looks at me and I look at her and we say, I'm sorry, we have to go.
There is something extremely disingenuous about Howard Lutnick. He oozes slime ball attorney attitude. So when he's claiming that this is the type of behavior that was going on and he was trying to run away from it, I don't believe it. Why would you? It would seem to me that this is kind of a big deal. Why would Howard Lutnick say these things? Now, some attorneys deserve that scrutiny. Look at Alan Dershowitz. I'm not saying he's Dershowitz level, but you would have to agree that there's something very dishonest, abrasive about the way that Lutnick is talking.
And we left. And in the 6 or 8 steps it takes to get from his house to my house, my wife and I decided that I will never be in the room with that disgusting person ever again.
Really?
So I was never in the room with him socially, for business, or for even philanthropy. If that guy was there, I wasn't going because he's gross.
Oh.
And so I look back at it as a gift.
Yes.
He gave me a gift
Yes.
of a voice. And
Yeah.
so, yeah,
So
that's
he
my
would-
story. A one and absolutely done.
Yeah, I don't believe him, and I don't know who would believe him. Howard Lutnick has had, no, they all, here's the thing, guys. I don't really think they care at this point. I don't think they care. I think this woman with the shit-eating grin on her face doesn't care. In the end, they're allowed to get away with what they get away with because Epps' empire is collapsing. Empire is collapsing because the rule of law no longer exists. People do not trust the system, and once the trust is broken, you can never get it back. That's why it's like rats on a sinking ship. That's why people like Lutnick, who admit or have been found out in the Epstein files to have brought his own family to the island. So he lied, claiming that, oh, I saw the massage table and I ran away, never to be seen again. No, that's not true. He's been found out. When it comes to the President of the United States, who again, his Justice Department, everything that they do is seemingly above the law. He's never going to do anything as long as he's in control. I really want people to understand that. He's not going to change. And neither are the people around him. But the more we see this, the more this is how business is allowed to be conducted. The faster we're going to get a break in this system for good. And the reason I say that is because here we have the President of the United States, saying Trump claims ignorance of Lutnick's Epstein Island visit, and then says he heard he was there with his wife and children. That doesn't make the story any better. That makes it even worse. We've seen the pictures. We've heard the stories, the debauchery. Like, you bring kids to this island? And don't give me this bullshit about how you don't know what was going on. They all knew. They knew for years. President Trump on Thursday said he did not know about Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick's 2012 trip to pedo financier Jeffrey Epstein's notorious private island, but then told a reporter he had heard about details of the trip. Okay, so even Trump can't get his story straight, but whatever. That's not a surprise. They all lie. Speaking from the Roosevelt Room during an event to announce the repeal of a longstanding climate rule reviled by the fossil fuel industry, Trump was asked if he'd been aware of Lutnick's travel to Little St. James, the small part of the U.S. Virgin Islands previously owned by Epstein, and whether he still has confidence in the former bond trading executive. No, I wasn't aware of that. I actually haven't spoken to him about it, but from what I hear, he was there with his wife and children. And as he added, I was never there. Somebody will someday say that I was never there. Yeah, maybe if you keep convincing yourself in your own mind that you've never been there, maybe it'll come true. Maybe if you wish for it, it'll come true. Trump notably did not answer the second part of the question as to whether he has confidence in Lutnick, a longtime friend who had pushed to become Treasury Secretary after serving as the finance chief for the president's 2024 campaign. The Commerce Secretary has long been known to have had ties to Epstein, who was his next-door neighbor in New York, years before he pleaded guilty to prostitution charges in Florida as part of a sweetheart deal with a George W. Bush-era prosecutor, who later became Trump's first Secretary of Labor during his first term. In October, he told the New York Post he'd cut off contact with Epstein, who died in a New York jail cell while awaiting sex trafficking charges in 2019 after a 2005 encounter that he claims had left him so unsettled he vowed to never be in the room with that disgusting person ever again. As you can now see, that is a lie that can be verified. And if you're willing to tell one lie, how many more lies are you willing to tell? But documents released by the Justice Department this year that were reviewed by The Independent showed that Lutnick not only maintained ties with Epstein as late as 2018, the year before he was indicted on federal sex trafficking charges, and long after he'd spent time in jail for state-level offenses related to his preying on young girls, but even arranged a visit to Epstein's Island in 2012. Lutnick grudgingly admitted to visiting the infamous landmass, which is part of the U.S. Virgin Islands, on Tuesday under questioning from Maryland Senator Chris Van Hollen. And I will say this, if there is somebody in the Democratic Party in the Senate that has actually been doing a decent job, it's Senator Van Hollen. Give credit where credit's due. That's a pretty disgusting thought that I really don't want to get into. However, one lie begets another lie. And as Lutnick has displayed, as so many others have displayed, the lying never stops. But in the end, is anything going to come of this? Will there be any justice against Howard Lutnick for what he's done? And we all know that if he was willing to lie about when he cut off communication with Epstein, and there's proof that he went to the island, you know he's into something. So what's it going to take to get somebody like this out of power? Honestly, I hope he stays in power. You know why? Because when the system's breaking, don't try to lay another level of foundation in order to prevent it from collapsing altogether. Just let it fall, because it's inevitable. This system has to fall.